So this is a pattern for the 3-zip bag. You can see I've made some earlier here. They can look quite different. You've got 2 pockets on the front. This one is a short pocket. And then you've got a large main pocket with a carry strap that you can leave, or you can make adjustable. The pattern gives you the instructions for making it adjustable. This one is my favorite with the metallic zip and this really powerful mosaic swan fabric on the front and the back. But you don't want to know about my favorites, you want to know about making it. So different fabrics. This is a quilting cotton. I have a denim on the back of this one with some patchwork here on the bottom. This is actually an outdoor canvas, some offcuts with cotton canvas on the back of that. So that's all 3 done. I've just stitched, as I say, 1/2 centimetre, about 1/8 of an inch from the end of each zipper pull, end of each zipper tape, just to seal those edges and help me out in the sewing later on. What I'm going to do now is pin one of these zips onto the bottom panel with the bottom panel pocket. So I get my zipper tape with those ends cut. Let's just trim that bit off. And I'm going to put the zipper tape right side together with my onto my bottom panel. I'm going to pin it in place. And find my pocket. My pocket is going to go over the top like that. So I'm happy with that. Let's go to the machine. So I'm going to stitch this zipper tape on. Back stitch a couple of times at the beginning. So that's the first row of stitching. Now I'll get the pocket right sides together on top, pinned again in exactly the same way as I just did. Sorry, didn't mean to bang that. My studio's not very big. And there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go back over those stitches I just did. My foot is down so that I can move without any impact on my sewing unlike the camera. I apologise. I'll move it and stop banging it. So now what I'm doing is I'm just going to lift the foot up and move that zipper pull out the way. And there we get the first pocket is in place. Now, to avoid it catching, I'm going to need to top stitch. But I'm just going to change my thread. So the top stitching is, again, for me, I just use about 1/8 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch would probably be the maximum that you want to go to, because you don't want it to be too far away from the zip. And there we go. There is the first row of top stitching. Now I'm just going to repeat that process with the next pocket. So let's go to the table. We get the middle panel, which is the 2.5 inch panel. Match up the sides and lay it down on top of the zip. So now I've pinned that to the front, I'm going to turn it over and get the bottom edge of my bottom panel pocket, and I put that up at the top. Okay, so if I pin this now, so there's the bottom panel, there's the middle panel, right sides together, pinned onto the top of the zipper tape. On the back, or the inside of your bag, the pocket for the bottom panel has come up and been pinned to the back of the zip. Let's take that to the machine, and I'll stitch along here so that we can then see that pocket. So the pocket is on the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch along the top with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance here. I'm about halfway. Because the zip pull is here, I'm just going to move it behind my foot so it's out of the way. And I'll take this opportunity to just check that everything is still lined up. And then we keep going. Back stitch at the end. And there we are. Let me bring that light. There we are. So there's the stitching on the top of the zip and the pocket. That means if I push that up out of the way, there is my bottom panel pocket, and there is my middle panel in position. What I need to do now is I need to top stitch along here to keep the middle panel out of that zip. So now I'm ready to top stitch it. I'm making sure that this middle panel is folded nicely and that that seam that I've just stitched is sitting up, so that when I come along the top here, I can feel the ridge. I can make sure I'm catching that the whole way along when I sew, okay? Just a quick back stitch there. Again, just a 1/4 inch seam allowance here because the purpose is to catch that fabric and keep it out of the way of the zipper. And as I get to the end, just a quick back stitch. And there is the middle panel ready for me to add its zipper and pocket. Let's go. Okay, so zipper and pocket for the middle pocket. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put my zipper right sides together with the outside. Sorry if you can hear my dog outside the door. She's complaining about not being allowed in. Don't worry, as soon as she finds a treat or a toy, she'll be fine. So my zip is here, and here is my pocket. Just like I did for this bottom zip, I'm going to go and stitch the zip on, and then I'll put the pocket on. Okay, so now what we do is we get the bottom of the middle pocket, line it up with the top of the zip that we just stitched in, pin it in place, and on the front we get the top piece. Right sides together, match the edges, and that goes on. I'm going to stitch across, lift that up, top stitch, exactly the same as I've done everywhere else so far. Okay, so again, about a 1/2 centimetre, 1/8 inch seam allowance. Just stopping halfway to get that zip pull out of the way of the machine foot. Make sure that everything's still all lined up nicely. It's that top edge I'm trying to make sure is lined up. The top edge of this panel, the top edge of the zipper tape, and the top edge of the pocket. They all need to be lined up so that they're going to sit flat and I can stitch over them and top stitch them to secure them. So there is my top pocket, stitched in place with my middle panel. Now what I do is I just push that top panel flat. If your fabric is quite thick, you may want to press this, but remember, don't ever press your zipper tape, your teeth, because either these are nylon or they're metal. Either way, your iron is not going to like it. Okay, so now the third and final zip. So I've stitched the third and final zip to the top of the top panel. Now I need to get my lining for the main pocket. Now I cut this as a single piece of 22 inches long, so I need to cut down the middle to halve it. Let me just do that. Actually, I'll use these. Okay. Now it doesn't seem intuitive to do this, and I do completely understand it, but we're going to put the lining onto the front. So right sides together, pin it on. And if you give me a second, I will show you why. Because what we're doing is we're creating the lining on the main pocket. So what you can see I've done there is I've done the inside of the main pocket. And if I turn this over, that main pocket piece is going to sit over the top of your bottom panel pocket and your middle panel pocket. Your top panel doesn't have a pocket. So what we'll do now is I'll go and sew that. And then I'm going to turn it over, do that zip up. I'm going to top stitch now. And that is one side of the 3 zippered bag done. Okay, we're just going to make the shoulder strap, the strap anchors. This is interfaced, but that's because it is a stretch fabric. I just want that rigidity. If this was denim, canvas, or even a drill, cotton drill, I probably wouldn't have interfaced it. It's just because it's a stretch fabric. So we're going to fold it in half along the longest side, shortest side. Then bring that half back to the halfway line. very scant seam. This is 1/2 centimetre, 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, take that to the middle. Pressing it down firmly so I create a nice solid edge. I'm just going to check that, make sure it is 1 inch. Yeah, that's 1 inch, okay. 1/2 centimetre seam. And there's my first strap. So I'm going to use these gorgeous iridescent D-rings. Just put my strap through there, fold it in half. How good does that look? Anyway, sorry, focusing on what you should be doing. I'm just going to do a couple of stitches here because I just want to make sure that it's in position and I don't need to be fiddling with too much when I get to the point of installing that. So that's one done. Long edge, short edge. I fold it in half so that the long sides meet. And I bring that half back. So on the quarter fold, I do a 1/2 centimetre seam. Then I'll do it again. So I've done 2 seams. I've got very well colour coordinated fabric thread here so you can't see as clearly, sorry. Just going to match those end pieces. And again on 1/2 centimetre, just stitch across the bottom so that they stay in place. And that is the strap anchors. Okay, so I've top stitched my last zip and the 1/2 of the pocket is ready. Now I want to get my strap anchors that I made earlier. Just tidy up those bits of thread so that they don't get caught in the zip later on. And then 1.5 inches in from the raw edge, I'm going to put my strap anchor. Because I'm using a sequin fabric, I'm not going to pin this. Okay, now I can stitch those on so that they're basted on, and then the back panel is going to go over the top of that. I'll just baste them on. Okay, so they're basted on. I didn't back stitch or anything, but it is a 1/2 centimetre seam, so it's a 1/8 of an inch seam, because I just want to hold them in position. I'll get my piece of fabric for the back and I'll pin that in. I'm pinning in 3 places here, just basically avoiding the those strap anchors. So that's the reverse side. You can see the base, the stitching there. I've got some nesting because I used my automatic thread cutter. Okay, so I'll just go and stitch that on now. I'm just going to slow down as I go over the strap anchors because that's a fair amount of fabric. I want to make sure that I've got some good stitching there. And because of the amount of stress that's going to be on those strap anchors, I am going to back stitch on the ends. Just get that zip out of. Okay, now I'm going to open it up, and that pocket that I just stitched, that piece that I just stitched on the back of the main pocket, I need to top stitch it. Now in this instance, I will top stitch it with the zip closed completely, so I have the flattest possible, straightest line. I'm also going to make sure that I catch the bottom of these straps. So I'm going to stitch down here, but the strap anchors are flat and pointing that way.